Imagine waking up one day and finding that your ordinary life has been swallowed whole by a phenomenon. The quiet coffee shop around the corner is now a staging ground for a media siege. The relaxed commute to work is now a high-stakes operation involving security details and decoy vehicles. The office, once a place of routine and quiet camaraderie, has been transformed into the biggest, loudest, most chaotic traveling circus in the history of sports. This is not a movie plot. This is not a fever dream. This was the reality for the Indiana Fever in 2024. The empty seats that had become a familiar, almost depressing, fixture of the WNBA landscape were entirely gone, replaced by a deafening, ear-splitting roar of 18,000 screaming fans who had packed every arena home and away. The quiet, relaxed atmosphere of a rebuilding team grinding through a Tuesday night game in front of a sparse crowd was replaced by the suffocating intensity of a nationally televised event. The chartered flights arrived, a symbol of progress, but they also brought an overwhelming security detail, the paparazzi lying in wait at every hotel, and the endless, often suffocating media debates that consumed national television airwaves for days on end. Welcome to the new reality of the Indiana Fever. Welcome to the absolute, undeniable madness of the Caitlyn Clark effect. The world's cameras, a constellation of zoom lenses and broadcast trucks, were overwhelmingly, almost obsessively trained on the player wearing number 22. Every dribble, every pass, every glance was analyzed, celebrated, and at times vilified on a scale the sport had never seen. It was a historic moment, a cultural tipping point that shattered records and drew millions of new eyes to women's basketball. But in the blinding glare of that spotlight, a completely different, much deeper story was unfolding in the shadows. While the world watched the icon, a more profound human drama was playing out just off camera. What is it actually like to share a locker room, share a court, and share the immense crushing pressure that comes with being a teammate of a generational basketball icon? We have heard the mainstream media's narrative, often simplistic, sometimes divisive. We have heard the aggressive haters on social media, weaponizing their vitriol from behind a keyboard. We have heard the analysts screaming on daytime television, desperate for hot takes that will drive ratings. But we have rarely heard the brutal, unfiltered truth from the people who actually lived it every single day on the hardwood, until now. Lexie Hull, the sharpshooting defensive anchor of the Indiana Fever, and undeniably one of Caitlyn Clark's closest friends on the entire roster, has just broken her silence. In what she revealed about the harsh reality of the Clark effect, the toxic narratives that sought to dismantle the league's newfound popularity, and her ultimate, unwavering commitment to returning to Indiana, reveals a side of this historic team that everyone else completely missed. This is the unspoken truth. This is the story of the sisterhood that refused to break. This is the story of Lexie Hull. Hard-eyed the before times, a franchise in the dark. To truly understand the incredible magnitude of Lexie Hull's words, her loyalty, and the context of her breakout season, we have to rewind the tape. We have to look at the foundation of this franchise before the earthquake hit. Let's be completely real for a moment. Before the year 2024, before the ping-pong balls of the draft lottery delivered a savior, the Indiana Fever were stranded in the dark basement of the WNBA. They were a franchise in the middle of a brutal, unforgiving rebuild, a team that had become an afterthought on a league calendar filled with established dynasties and rising contenders. Lexie Hull was drafted 6th overall in the 2022 WNBA draft out of Stanford University. She arrived with a prestigious championship pedigree, having won a national title under the legendary Tara Vander Veer. She was a player defined by her high basketball IQ, her relentless work ethic, and a defensive tenacity that had made her a cornerstone of one of college basketball's most disciplined programs. She brought a winning culture to a professional team that desperately needed one. But the transition from the pristine, structured environment of Stanford to the gritty reality of a WNBA rebuild is rarely a beautiful fairy tale. For 2 agonizing seasons, Lexie Hull and the Fever grinded away in relative obscurity. They played incredibly hard. They fought for every possession, every loose ball, every inch of hardwood. Head coach Christy Sides was in her first year trying to instill a new system. The team's young core, which would later become the engine of a revolution, was still finding its footing. The wins were scarce, coming in frustratingly small clusters, and in the national media, attention was practically non-existent. The Fever game was a local affair, a quiet event for die-hard fans, often played in front of a cavernous Gainbridge fieldhouse that felt more like a library than a sports arena. Then the ping-pong balls of the draft lottery bounced their way. First, in 2023, they secured the dominant interior presence of Aaliyah Boston, the national champion from South Carolina, a generational post player whose defensive prowess and leadership were immediately felt. It was a massive step forward, a foundational piece that gave the franchise hope. But the seismic shift, the one that would alter the very fabric of the league, was yet to come. Caitlyn Clark arrived in 2024. Virtually overnight, the Indiana Fever went from being an absolute afterthought dedicated fans watched to the undisputed main event of American sports culture. The transition was not gradual. It was violent, rapid, and overwhelmingly disorienting. For the veteran players and the young core who were already in that locker room, the adjustment period was something absolutely no one could have prepared for. There was no manual for this, no blueprint for surviving a cultural phenomenon. Every single missed shot was overanalyzed by a legion of new fans and critics. Every single hard foul on Caitlyn Clark sparked a 3-day national television debate about the league's physicality, its welcome to the WNBA moment, and the supposed jealousy of veteran players. Every rotation by the coaching staff, every substitution pattern, and every tiny facial expression on the bench was dissected and turned into a viral moment. Millions of brand new fans, many watching the WNBA for the very first time, were suddenly invested in the minutiae of the Indiana Fever season. It is incredibly easy to look at the sold-out arenas, the roaring crowds, the chartered flights, and the increased salaries and think that these players have it made, that the arrival of a superstar was a golden ticket for everyone. But the psychological toll of playing under a microscope that intense is astronomical. You aren't just playing basketball anymore. You are participating in a massive, often volatile, cultural phenomenon. The pressure wasn't just to win, it was to win in a way that satisfied a divided and passionate fan base. And if you do not have the elite mental fortitude to block out the noise, that intense spotlight will burn you alive. But instead of melting under the suffocating pressure, Lexie Hull thrived. She didn't just survive the Caitlyn Clark effect, she completely weaponized it. She went from a player whose contributions were appreciated by a niche group of Fever faithful to a fan favorite, a household name among the new wave of WNBA fans. The transition was stark. As Hull herself noted on the Show Me Something podcast with Sophie Cunningham, the change from playing in front of a couple of thousand people in an empty gym to a sold-out crowd of 18,000 plus every single night, home and away, was monumental. It might be, she said, reflecting on the shift. But it's like that's hard. I think like once you start winning and once more people start showing up, like your experience changes. That simple statement captured the duality of the moment. It was exhilarating, but it was also hard. It was a profound shift in the very experience of being a professional athlete.
In the modern game of basketball, there is a very specific concept known as gravity. It's the idea that a superstar's mere presence on the court warps the geometry of the game, pulling defenders out of position and creating opportunities for everyone else. Stephen Curry has it, bending defenses with his threat from 30 feet. LeBron James has it, collapsing entire defenses with his drive to the basket. The exact moment Caitlyn Clark stepped her foot onto a WNBA court, she possessed the most intense gravitational pull this league had ever witnessed. Opposing defensive coordinators were utterly terrified of her logo three-pointers, shots that were considered reckless just a few years prior. They face-guarded her at 94 feet, refusing to let her even touch the ball without a defender draped over her. They aggressively blitzed her on every single pick and roll, sending 2 players to trap her the moment she came off a screen. They sent hard trapping double teams the very second she crossed the half-court line. Now, basketball is, at its core, a numbers game. It's a sport of advantages. When a defense desperately commits 2 players to the ball handler, someone else is left wide open. But being open and actually making a professional defense pay for their mistakes are 2 entirely different things. Early in the season, the Indiana Fever struggled with their floor spacing. The chemistry was new, the roles were being defined, and the pressure was immense. Opponents actively dared Indiana's role players to shoot from the perimeter. They packed the paint to completely neutralize Aaliyah Boston, sending double teams at her the moment she established post position. And they aggressively trapped Clark on the outside, daring the other Fever players to beat them. The Fever desperately needed a pressure release valve. They needed a cold-blooded killer on the wing. They needed a player who wouldn't shy away from the moment, but would instead step into it with unwavering confidence. Enter Lexie Hull. Lexie's elite basketball IQ, honed over years under the legendary Tara Vanderveer at Stanford, kicked into maximum overdrive. She recognized exactly what the Clark effect meant from a tactical standpoint. It wasn't just about watching Caitlyn, it was about understanding her. It meant that if you ran the floor as hard as you could in transition, Caitlyn would find you, delivering a pinpoint pass 70 feet down the court with a flick of her wrist. It meant that if you smartly relocated to the corner, sliding into the blind spot of a help defender, the moment Caitlyn drove into the paint and drew a crowd, the basketball would hit you perfectly in the shooting pocket. Hull fully embraced the vital role of the ultimate 3-and-D enforcer. Defensively, she morphed into an absolute menace. She was no longer just a good defender. She was a lockdown artist, willingly taking the hardest perimeter assignment night in and night out. She fought through brutal screens, her Stanford-bred discipline keeping her on balance. She constantly disrupted passing lanes with her length and anticipation. And she sacrificed her body, diving on the hardwood for loose balls, taking charges, and doing all the intangible things that coaches and teammates value above all else. Offensively, she transformed into an elite sniper. Her three-point shooting percentage skyrocketed to the top of the league charts. She wasn't just making open shots, she was punishing defenses for their aggressive schemes. When the defense sent a double team at Clark, Hull would slide to the open spot, catch the pass, and rise up without hesitation. Her release was quick, her form pure, and her confidence unwavering. She became one of the most efficient and lethal spot-up shooters in the entire WNBA, a player whose mere presence on the wing made opposing defenses think twice about helping off her. When you listen to Lexie speak about playing with Caitlyn, you hear the absolute, unwavering trust between them. This wasn't a forced, awkward partnership of two players who happened to be on the same team. It was a pure, organic basketball synergy, a meeting of two high IQ minds. Lexie understood that if she was in the right place, Caitlyn would find her. Caitlyn understood that if she trusted Lexie, the shot would go in. The exact moment Lexie started brutally punishing defenses for doubling Clark, the entire geometry of the basketball court opened up for the Indiana Fever offense. The paint became less crowded for Aaliyah Boston. The driving lanes became clearer for Kelsey Mitchell. The entire offense began to hum with a rhythm and efficiency that made them one of the most dangerous units in the league. Part 3. Beyond the hardwood, the bond that silenced the noise. But the beautiful synergy between Hull and Clark was absolutely not just built on the hardwood. In fact, the most crucial and revealing part of Lexie's brutal honesty about the Caitlyn Clark effect has absolutely nothing to do with X's and O's. It has everything to do with what actually happens when the stadium lights go dark, the crowd files out, and the television cameras are finally turned off. If you had foolishly let the daytime sports media tell the story in the summer of 2024, you would naturally have assumed the Indiana Fever locker room was a toxic war zone. Throughout the entire historic season, talking heads and relentless clickbait articles tried desperately to push a false narrative of deep jealousy, bitter resentment, and team division. They tried to paint a disturbing picture that the veteran WNBA players deeply despised the rookies, that Caitlyn Clark was completely isolated on her own lonely island, the victim of a league-wide conspiracy to humble her. It was a narrative built for conflict, for ratings, for engagement. It ignored the human element entirely. But if you actually watched the Fever closely, if you carefully observed their body language on the bench, their celebrations after big plays, and their genuine interactions off the court, a completely beautiful reality emerged. And Lexie Hull is the living, breathing proof that the media's toxic narrative was completely fabricated. Lexie and Caitlyn naturally formed a profound bond that quickly became the emotional anchor for the entire Indiana Fever franchise. It started with shared interests, a love of the game, a competitive fire, and a mutual appreciation for each other's skills. But it quickly evolved into something much deeper. They became inseparable road trip buddies, often seen sitting together on the plane or at team dinners. They became hilarious TikTok partners, creating content that showed their genuine friendship and playful dynamic. They became incredibly close friends, confidants who could talk about the immense pressure they were both under in a way no one else could understand. That right there is the brutal honesty the sports world desperately needed to hear. while analysts and television studios were busy trying to tear the team apart for higher ratings, drawing up imaginary feuds between Clark and her teammates, Lexie Hull and the rest of the resilient Indiana Fever roster were busy building an impenetrable fortress around their rookie point guard. They were creating a safe harbor. In a grueling season defined by unbearable national pressure, constant suffocating scrutiny, and a non-stop schedule, their authentic friendship became a sanctuary. It was a space where they could just be two young women who loved basketball, away from the noise. Lexie deeply understands something fundamental about championship-winning teams. You simply cannot win a ring if your locker room is fractured. The success of the 2024 Fever was not despite the pressure. It was, in part, because of the unity forged in the fires of that pressure. Hull saw the extreme physical beating Caitlyn was taking on the court every single night. The cheap shots, the flagrant fouls, the intense, borderline dirty physicality specifically designed to intimidate and break the rookie. It was all there for the world to see. And what was Lexie's immediate response? She didn't complain on social media. She didn't give sound bites to the press. She acted. She instantly became the team's enforcer. When opposing players tried to get unnecessarily physical with Clark, Lexie was always the very first one in their face, a quiet but fierce presence, letting them know that the rookie was not alone. She was always the first one to sprint over and pick her point guard up off the floor, extending a hand and a word of encouragement. She wasn't just fiercely protecting a teammate, she was fiercely protecting the future of the franchise. Her relentless willingness to do the dirty work, to take the painful hits, and to loudly, proudly support Clark in the media without ever seeking credit for it, helped completely neutralize the toxic noise surrounding the team. She helped definitively prove that the Caitlyn Clark effect is not about one single player operating above the rest of the team. It is beautifully about a collective group of women rising together to meet an unprecedented historic moment in sports history. It was about a sisterhood that refused to let the outside world define them. As the dust finally settled on a truly historic, record-breaking season, the Indiana Fever had officially arrived on the big stage. They shattered television viewership records, becoming the most-watched product in WNBA history. They completely destroyed arena attendance records, selling out arenas across the country. And most importantly, they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that they belonged in the serious playoff conversation. They had taken their lumps, learned from their mistakes, and finished the season as one of the most dangerous and exciting teams in the league. But in the ruthless world of professional sports, massive success instantly brings new, complicated challenges. The offseason in the WNBA is notoriously volatile and unpredictable. It's a whirlwind of free agency periods, expansion drafts, players choosing to go overseas for the winter, or joining brand new leagues like Unrivaled. Rosters can get completely blown up in the blink of an eye, with core pieces departing for new opportunities, bigger contracts, or a change of scenery. For Lexie Hull, her unbelievable breakout performance in 2024 meant she suddenly had massive leverage. She had proven her undeniable elite value to the rest of the league. In a sport where perimeter defense and three-point shooting are at a premium, Hull had become a unicorn, a player who could lock down the opponent's best guard while simultaneously spacing the floor and knocking down shots at an elite clip. Every single championship contender in the WNBA would absolutely kill to have a lockdown perimeter defender who shoots over 40% from deep. Her phone was likely ringing off the hook. The offers would have been there. So the massive question was, what would her next move be? Would she choose to chase a different, perhaps more lucrative opportunity away from the media circus that had engulfed her life? Would she seek a team where she could be a higher usage player, away from the constant scrutiny of the Clark effect? Would she be lured by a franchise in a bigger market, or one offering a more prominent offensive role? Her answer when she appeared on Sophie Cunningham's Show Me Something podcast was as straightforward, powerful, and fiercely loyal as her style of play on the court. It was a declaration of intent. She spoke glowingly about the organization, about the changes and upgrades that had come with the arrival of Caitlyn Clark, and about her desire to be a part of it. The hosts of the show, reacting to her comments, summarized the sentiment perfectly. She wants to run it back. Make no mistake about it. Give Lexie Hull a 3-year deal. We want to keep her. Returning to Indiana was absolutely not just a simple business decision for Lexie. It was a powerful statement of intent. It was a loud declaration to the rest of the league that the job in Indianapolis was far from finished. She wasn't looking for an escape from the pressure. She was embracing it. She wasn't looking to be the star of a lesser team. She was looking to be an essential part of a potential dynasty. Lexie Hull isn't just coming back to comfortably ride the massive wave of the Clark effect. She is returning to finish exactly what this core group boldly started. When you truly look at the devastating foundation they have built in Indiana, it is terrifying for the rest of the league. It's a roster built for modern basketball, with a perfect blend of inside-outside dominance and defensive versatility. You have the dominant, unstoppable interior presence of Aaliyah Boston, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, who was also developing into a reliable offensive hub in the post. You have the blazing, electrifying scoring ability of Kelsey Mitchell, a veteran guard who can create her own shot and go for 30 points on any given night, and who has formed a potent backcourt partnership with Clark. You have the unmatched visionary playmaking of Caitlyn Clark, a once-in-a-generation talent whose passing, shooting, and gravity redefine how the game is played. And you have the absolute glue that holds the entire perimeter together, Lexie Hull, the defender who takes the toughest assignment, the shooter who punts the double teams, and the spirit who keeps the locker room united. This is no longer just a fun team with potential. This is a battle-tested team with a terrifyingly high ceiling. They have been through the fire. They have survived the most intense media scrutiny the sport has ever seen. They have seen the narratives, felt the pressure, and emerged stronger, more cohesive, and more focused. Lexie knows deep down that the unbreakable chemistry they forged in the intense fires of last season's media circus simply cannot be replicated anywhere else. It's a bond built on shared adversity, on mutual trust, and on a collective belief in what they're building. They survived the hardest, most grueling part of the journey. They successfully learned how to play elite basketball under the brightest, hottest lights in the entire world. Now it is time to actively hunt for a WNBA championship. Conclusion: the real story of the Indiana Fever. The brutal, refreshing honesty of Lexie Hull tears down every single fake narrative that surrounded the Indiana Fever. It strongly reminds us that behind the staggering television ratings, behind the endless viral tweets, and behind the exhausting daily debates, these are real, dedicated athletes navigating uncharted historic territory in women's sports. The Caitlyn Clark effect definitely changed the WNBA forever. It brought the massive money, the lucrative television deals, and the millions of new eyes. It brought a level of cultural relevance that the league had never experienced before. And yes, it brought suffocating pressure, a level of scrutiny that was often unfair and exhausting. But it also beautifully revealed the true, undeniable character of the incredible players standing right next to her. Lexie Hull could have easily faded into the quiet background. She could have let the massive pressure of this new era swallow her whole, becoming just another footnote in the Caitlyn Clark story. Instead, she boldly stepped straight into the blinding spotlight. She confidently knocked down the corner three-pointer, played stifling defense against the league's best, and proudly declared to the world that the Indiana Fever are absolutely not a one-woman show. They are a brotherhood, a fierce sisterhood, and a collective, unstoppable force that is entirely ready to take over the league. Her story is a testament to the power of resilience, of finding your role and excelling at it, of the importance of genuine friendship in the face of overwhelming pressure. It's a reminder that in a world obsessed with individual stars, championships are won by the players who do the dirty work, who protect their teammates, who buy into the system, and who choose loyalty over convenience. As we look toward the highly anticipated future, one thing is absolutely certain. The rest of the WNBA better be ready. They know what's coming. They know the gravity of Caitlyn Clark. They know the force of Aaliyah Boston in the paint. They know the scoring punch of Kelsey Mitchell. And now they have been reminded that in the corner, waiting with the confidence of a champion, is Lexie Hull, a player who has proven she is more than capable of making them pay for every mistake. Caitlyn Clark has the basketball, orchestrating the offense with the vision of a maestro. Lexie Hull is waiting in the corner, a silent assassin ready to strike. And the Indiana Fever, forged in the fire of a historic season and united by an unbreakable bond, are just getting started. The real story of this team was never about a single player. It was about the collective that rose to meet the moment. And they are only now beginning to write their championship legacy.